a special election in February for the Charleston County School Board's vacant District 6 seat, which cover parts of West Ashley and North Charleston. On the ballot are two candidates, Lee Runyon, a retired educator and West Ashley resident, and Daron Calhoun II, a West Ashley resident and a constituent school board member. I talk one-on-one with Lee for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Lee Runyon, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
I'm happy to be back with you, Quintin.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. You know, the last time I spoke with you was in October when you first ran for the Charleston County School Board for District 6. And for those who don't know, Lee, what particular part of District 6 does the school district cover?
It covers West Ashley, along the Highway 17, Savannah Highway corridor, back around through Beast Ferry Road corridor, and then over across the Ashley River into North Charleston, running along the Ashley River in the Dorchester Road corridor over there up to approximately Montague Avenue.
Montague Avenue, wow. So with all that ground being covered, what is the growth? What is the pace of growth right there in that area?
The pace of growth is tremendous, Quintin, in terms of folks moving in, particularly families moving in from out of state. The real estate market has slowed a bit, of course, with the inflation and rising interest rates. But I know in the Beast Ferry Road corridor of West Ashley, we've seen houses continue to sell in our neighborhoods and seeing new families moving in, and the bus stops are full with a lot of elementary children and a lot of middle school children and a lot of new faces to Charleston. So it's refreshing.
Now, how many new families have moved into your district since 2021?
According to the census data and more importantly the state election data, that's what I've been focused on. We saw about 1,400 folks cast ballots in the November 8th election who were voting for the first time in our district. Now, a percentage of those may have been young people voting, for the first time in their lives, but a higher percentage were adults who had moved here from out of the area initially.
Now, how many of those people were moving from out of the area?
Typically about 10%.
Wow, roughly. And going back to the November 8th election, obviously you ran as a candidate.
Correct.
You came in second place.
Correct.
Why are you back now?
To finish the job. To begin with, as we spoke about earlier in the fall, I feel like the experience that I bring to the table for the community and the board is much needed in the growth of the district and the improvement of the district. And at the same time, too, my opponent in the fall, Erica Coakley, suffered a tremendous tragedy and loss that unfortunately caused her to self-reflect and make decisions professionally to relocate outside of the district, outside the state. Her family suffered a tremendous loss of life and the loss of her son. And she and I have had that conversation, and I've told her that I wanted to continue the great work that she was trying to accomplish on the Charleston County School Board at the point in time that she made the decision to step aside for personal reasons.
Now, in that conversation, did she actually endorse you for this new seat?
I didn't ask her for her endorsement.
Okay.
I did tell her that I wanted to support her and that the reasons that she had chosen to step aside were legitimate, valid reasons. I would not wish upon any family, any parent. I believe as a community that law enforcement and the public entities could have done more to support Ms. Coakley. And one of the things that I pledged to her to do as a public official was to continue to advocate for her case to be adjudicated, to be fully investigated, because at the point in time we had those conversations in November, there had still not been ample investigation of her son's unfortunate, untimely, and somewhat suspicious death.
Now, going back to District 6, obviously, Mr. Lee, as I mentioned, you came in second place.
Yes.
You were endorsed by Moms for Liberty.
Yes.
So with that support, why did you come in second place?
Well, when you look at the ballot and you look at the political outcomes in a general election, we had three candidates in the election. Ms. Coakley was a diverse candidate. She was a female candidate. In the fall, she also was first on the ballot. C comes before R. At the same time, too, she was an incumbent. Incumbents bring a certain degree of support as well. And she was the only diverse and female candidate in our race. So those things all coming into play set up the opportunity for voters to come to the polls for a number of different reasons. The difference between that election and now is this is the only election on the ballot on February 7th. The voting turnout in special elections sometimes is typically smaller than general elections. But the reality is that we believe that the voter turnout to come out and support myself as a candidate is the primary reason why people are going to come to the polls.
But then, knowing about what mom's validity is, wasn't that a rejection of you?
I don't think so. The problem we have in modern day society, locally and globally as well, is that we become too skewed in our viewpoints of who supports you versus who you are. Who I am is a very staunch supporter of public education, a public servant with over 30 years experience in the public education system that has worked diligently to make a difference in the lives of children, teachers, parents, households, and community for decades. The support that, for example, Moms for Liberty brings to the table resonates with me most specifically with parental voice and parental rights. Parents are our first educators regardless of zip code, and we need to support our parents in that regard. I keep in mind that I'm also received the endorsement of the local Democratic Party as well as the local Republican Party. So in a day and age where polarization is actually something that is the media flavor and topic of discussion of the day, I bring the unique ability to the table to resonate with multiple factions of the community because in a nonpartisan manner, they all recognize that the experience, the expertise, the know-how, and the success and background I have had in public education and public service for 3 decades are the much needed skill sets at this point in time. So we're not there to agenda and champion the agenda of any one specific group, but we're running for the purpose to galvanize Charleston County and Charleston County School District together where we can support all, not any specific agenda of fashion.
Does Mom for Liberty support you now?
Yes.
Let me ask you this. You were endorsed by the 1776 Project PAC as well.
We were.
It's a PAC dedicated to electing school board members nationwide committing to abolishing CRT. So what you just told me, isn't that not true?
Not necessarily not true, because in the fall, when we did the Republican Party interviews and endorsements, as you know, they had a very controversial survey in which one of the survey questions for candidates was specifically, do you disagree or agree with CRT? I have never supported any form of teaching, pedagogically or curricularly or otherwise, to children of any description that teaches that one group is better than the other or one person is better than the other. I believe devoutly and fundamentally that all children and all people are reflective of the content of their character, not by the color of their skin, nor the zip code that they come from, nor their ethnicity, nor their religion. So things such as CRT, while they may bring historical perspective to the table, I believe also bring subjectivity to the table, curricularly and pedagogically, that I think we need to step back from, because in education, we need to make sure that as we're teaching history and perspective, we're teaching kids how to think critically, not what to think critically, because they all come from various walks of life. But at the end of the day, when we have a heterogeneous mixture of children in the classroom, we need to make sure that we're making them all both educated, aware, and empowered simultaneously as we work towards building our community for the future.
How are students in District 6 being critically taught right now?
Critically taught?
Yes, sir.
It varies. So you have instructional models and methodologies inclusive of the use of one-to-one technology. You also have direct instruction, explicit direct instruction models going on at all the schools throughout the district. You've got the opportunities that are being afforded to children, for example, at West Ashley High School in partnership and cooperation with College of Charleston. You've got dual credit opportunities through Trident Technical College as well. we're challenging all of our children within the system across the board and within District 6 to think critically, but also to be well prepared, college and career ready for the future.
But what is one example of critical race theory taught in Charleston County schools?
I can't give you that specific example because I have not seen that specific example in play.
Why did you get that endorsement from Alpha Lidley then in this 1776 project?
Because I stand staunchly behind advocating for parent rights.
What are parent rights?
The parent rights are, I'll give you an example. As a principal, I spent 15 years in that capacity. When the school district, whether it be within Charleston County or the state, puts into place, for example, sex education. I was a health educator before I went into administration. We always have opt-out rights. We always have the ability to give parents the right to say, this is something that I'm going to opt my child out of because I feel strongly for various reasons that it should not be the case. We've had those things in place for decades, all right? Inclusive of shop records. We always have had in place the opportunity for people to opt their children out of certain immunizations as well. Those are all things that I've staunchly supported in my 28 years of educational service in a public sector that I continue to support today. I stood behind those parents who sometimes it would be very unique that would walk into the school and say, I need that form. This is why I'm not going to put my child into this program or fill out this survey or have this set of immunizations given. And by law, they had the right to do that. The reason why I stood beside those parents at that point, because those were parental rights. Now, sometimes those came within the EduCrack system that we have of accountability at a risk of not having as high of a number of kids tested or surveyed. So, for example, we would have certain surveys or tests, standardized tests in the district and the statewide that would say, unless you have 100% response rate on this survey or 99% testing rate or whatever the rate might be, then we will hold you as not having completed that task fully. At that point in time, as an administrator, I would prioritize in those instances the right of the parent over the accountability metric, knowing that in good faith we had offered those opportunities and we were being judged subjectively, where we could have simply, put them in a position that would have been very awkward but not supportive. And we chose not to do that for the good of children in those cases. And I want to continue to support parents in that capacity as we go forward.
You talk about those surveys, Mr. Lee. Did you personally survey any teachers or parents that actually have evidence of critical race theory taught in Charleston County schools?
During the time that I was a principal, from 2010 to 2019, leading St. John's High School, West Ashley High School, the Cooper River Center for Advanced Studies project, it never came to my attention by a parent that we were implementing or executing any pedagogical content that was critical race theory. That was something that was not a push-button item or a hot topic during that era.
Sure.
Now, have I seen evidence through the media of various things throughout the state and district, or not district, but so much the state, where parents have brought issue with certain books or certain content that was being taught, or maybe a poster that was put up in a classroom? We've seen evidence of that. Sometimes what we have to understand is the state has adopted standards, for example, in social studies, that are curricularly sound. And oftentimes what we find in the education system is the standards are the framework, but the pedagogical practice, classroom for classroom, allows some flexibility. So sometimes what happens within a school, for example, is you will have teachers who sometimes will become pedagogically tangential while they are addressing the content of the standards as appropriate. That's why we have checks and balances in place, for example, with lesson plan reviews, walkthroughs, things of those nature. And at the same time, I've never once as an administrator admonished a teacher for teaching inappropriate material or perhaps controversial material that brought to light the ability to raise the awareness of children to think critically or work collaboratively. And I think that's the important piece of that. So as we go forward in a society where we're becoming torn apart, so to speak, into polar opposites on certain things like critical race theory, as you brought up, that we have to keep in mind that we have a history, bumps, bruises, and all, as a country, as a community. We need to teach it appropriately. We don't need to gloss over the bad parts to just look at the good parts, because history will repeat itself if we don't prepare our young people for future generations of leadership. And that's been proven year in and year out. But keep in mind, Quintin, that when we go into the accountability side of things, for example, in middle school, social studies testing results only count every other year in some cases. In high school, the United States history and of course exam counts a lower percentage than English or math. So sometimes, for example, in Charleston, we go down this rabbit hole of concern over critical race theory. And really our primary targets and concerns need to be over literacy and numeracy. As the testing metrics reflect, that holds a higher percentage of accountability judgment. But at the end of the day, we've got a lot of kids who aren't reading on grade level that we need to focus on.
Why not focus on that?
Why not focus on that?
Why not just focus on getting these kids, educated?
I'm all for that. I have no problem with focusing on that. And I've not made, anything of my platform or agenda to be focused on anything other than academic improvement within the district, improvement of teacher support, making certain that we can improve both the salaries and the physical responsibility within the system to grow and sustain a great teaching workforce for years to come, and to focus on accomplishments with college and career readiness so that our students can graduate and flourish and have access and opportunities beyond measure as they move on from high school into the workforce, the military, or college and career. Those are the things that I've always focused on. And I've never really gotten down in the weeds on some of these other topics that have become tangential. And I think that's one of the unique opportunities that I bring to this board, given some current events of action with the board on some policies that you're probably familiar with that they're considering.
Sure.
My role and responsibility as a representative of District 6 in walking into this situation in February is to bring us back and focus on the priorities, which are, as you alluded to, the academics, the numeracy, the literacy, the teacher retention, the fiscal responsibility, the business of operations, the superintendency search. Those are things that we really need to be laser focused on as we move through these next few months. And that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to doing is getting us focused or maybe refocused on the business of the work at hand.
Well, doesn't that contradict the 1776 Project Pact statement?
No.
They're all about admonishing critical race theory, and here you are talking about business at hand.
It's more than one job and work responsibility of the elected official, wouldn't you agree?
But let me ask you this, Mr. Lee. Why not let the business folks, the superintendent and whatnot, focus on admonishing critical race theory if that is the case in Charleston County schools?
I agree. That's his responsibility. And the reality is that his responsibility as the general manager, quarterback of the district is to make sure that pedagogical practices that are going on within every classroom in the district are within policy and within state law. That's always been the responsibility of that position. We're not coming to the table with an agenda or a platform of saying that he needs to refocus his efforts on any specific things other than those areas. But on a given day in a given school district with over 3,500 employees, and nearly 50,000 students, you will have 1% or more of those employees and 1% or more of those students who will have a bad day. They might make a poor choice. They might make a poor decision. And we have systemic methodology in place to address those issues, whether it be through student code of conduct or staff, human resources, or whatever. Okay, we've got all that in place. The purpose of coming into February's election with the business at hand approach is to make sure that we are focused and laser focused on the business at hand and not becoming distracted by the rest of some of these things that we've been discussing for the last few minutes.
So, will you renounce their endorsement? Would you, send it back to them?
No. I'm not renouncing the endorsement of the Democratic Party. I'm not renouncing the endorsement of Moms for Liberty, the Republicans, the 1776 PAC, or otherwise.
Mr. Leader, let me stop there. Now, this is supposed to be a nonpartisan race.
Sure.
So why are you getting all these endorsements? What does that say about your leadership on the school board?
Right.
If you're elected,
what it says is I'm the right man for the job.
How
what
so?
It says is that these various groups, along with over 3,000 District 6 residents, recognize that experience counts, that expertise matters, and that I have the skill set to be the right person at the right time of leadership as required and needed to help us continue the great work in Charleston County School District and moving the district forward. That's what it says, Quintin, quite simply.
How could you move the district forward without these endorsements?
Without these endorsements?
Yes, sir.
The same way I could do it with them.
So why take the endorsement?
Because they came forward, they vetted me, and they said, you're somebody we would like to support.
How did you go about applying for that?
I didn't.
For this 1776 project pack?
No, I never filled out anything.
So how did they endorse you?
They read my resume, they read my platform, they reached out to me.
Now, when I went on the website just 20 minutes ago before your interview, it says that you had to apply to get an endorsement.
I never filled out any application as such.
So how did you go about actually getting in contact with them?
They contacted me.
When?
Approximately a month ago.
So what did you all talk about?
It was a brief conversation. They wanted to know about my belief system as far as parental rights.
Yeah.
I've shared that with you. They wanted to know about my belief system in terms of conservative governance, particularly fiscal responsibility.
Sure.
And I've made that very clear that being fiscally responsible, getting the dollars and cents bureaucratically out of Calhoun Street and into the classrooms is where I would prioritize my focus. And those two talking points, speaking points, platform points, must have resonated fully with them to the point that they felt like I was a good candidate. Have they had any influence on my decisions, my strategies? No. Has the Republican Party done so? No. Has the Democratic Party done so? No. I've taken everything in feedback from all of these groups to galvanize together a platform that can serve well the entire community. And at the same time I've done that, okay, I've not vacillated from doing what I've done now as to what I did when I was a principal or I was a leader. There were certain times, Quintin, during the course of the Postaway administration years, okay, where it was necessary to push back, not to believe in just the status quo, not to take the data reports as acceptable and accurate. And I have a very clear history of, when necessary, being that questioning voice in the room. Not for the purpose of being argumentative or confrontational, but for the purpose of being student-centered and community-driven and helping our organization just better serve kids and to better serve the whole child and the whole community. That's something I continue to do. I think what some people who may have a problem with endorsements will think is that when people receive endorsements, they become in some way controlled or by said organization. Look, I've never run for political office, and I'm running for political office for the purpose of making a difference in a system that I know after working in for 28 years can only be improved not by me sitting at Calhoun Street in a six-figure job, but by my being seated on the board where I can help us write policy and help us guide and direct sustainability for perhaps a decade or more to come. And for the purpose, I believe in term limits. I'm not running to sit here for the next 20 years either. I believe, and I've made this very clear, particularly in this election process, that part of what we have to work on in community growth and community building to sustain the success that we build and capacity we build over the next few years is to continue to cultivate leadership and engaged future leaders that may have an interest in sitting on the board one day, to help them better understand how committees work, how constituent boards work, how PTAs work, how they can roll up their sleeves and they can add value for our community, so that when we have an opportunity to elect board members in the future, that we have folks who both have the knowledge, the skill sets, and the know-how, similar to what I've experienced maybe in my professional choice.
Yes, sir.
Okay? But what I will conclude, that part of the conversation with this is this. I'm a staunchly independent person. I'm not a registered Democrat, nor am I a registered Republican.
But then why did you accept those endorsements, Mr. Lee?
Because, Quintin, okay, with endorsements come recognition, okay? Perhaps we wouldn't be having this conversation, even though it may be something that, you obviously want to talk about, if I didn't have those burning endorsements that create a Q&A session of sorts. I'm happy to talk about them. But at the end of the day, they haven't changed Lee Runyon, the educator, Lee Runyon, the Charlestonian, or Lee Runyon, the parent, Lee Runyon, the principal, Lee Runyon, the small business owner. Nor will they ever change Lee Runyon. And that's something that's very hard for people to understand and for it to resonate with them, because they think that endorsements in politics change people. What they don't understand and know about Lee Runyon is that the lines of communication are always open. The dialogue for anyone is always open, regardless of whether they agree or disagree with the talking points or the items that we're discussing. We can have a civil disposition of the conversation on that. We can grow when we have these conversations. And at the end of the day, I want you to know that I am the person that, when put in a position to make an independent decision for the best interest of Charleston County School District in the Low Country, that I'm going to do that regardless, Quintin, of whomever endorsed me or whoever supported me. Because we're going to put kids first. We're going to put teachers first. We're going to put our community first.
How could you do that? How could you put the kids first when you all are putting politics first? Endorsements and critical race theory issues?
I didn't do that.
You got endorsements.
Sure, I got the endorsements.
So with getting those endorsements, does your credibility just go out the door?
I don't think it does.
How so?
Because I've just described to you how so. Endorsements have not changed Lee Runyon. Endorsements are not going to change Lee Runyon. Lee Runyon has been the exact person that I've just described for over the last 3 decades of public service. And there are many people, including politicians, such as Senator Robert Ford, such as House Representative Marvin Pendarvis, such as City Councilman Jerome Hayward, okay? People who have rallied behind me, who have directly supported me, and who've also directly endorsed me. And sometimes, Quintin, when you accept support and endorsement from individuals locally, people have a problem with that too. So, for example, if I have, support and endorsement from Senator Ford, which I do, he worked across the aisle for over 30 years in Columbia on our behalf. Okay, he worked with Republicans, he worked with Democrats. If I have support and endorsement from Councilman Jerome Hayward, he works across the aisle as well for the good of North Charleston. Teddy Pryor, the list goes on and on. Okay, so the problem sometimes, a rub, becomes if you're supported by individuals, maybe they're local, maybe you agree with their politics or you disagree with their politics, that's one thing. but groups become something of another flavor. But at the end of the day, you have an opportunity here. District 6 has an opportunity here to vote a proven educator with an experienced track record of success onto the Charleston County School Board that will fight fiercely for the good of all children, and at the same time focus on the business at hand, while the talking heads of the media may go down the rabbit holes of some of the things that we've been discussing that truly are not necessarily the priorities or the necessary priorities at hand in the next 6 months for Charleston County School District, when we need to be talking about a superintendent, search for permanent superintendent, whether it be Don Kennedy or otherwise. I'm open to all ideas and possibilities there. And at the same time, we need to be talking budget. We need to be talking teacher pay raises. We need to be talking all of these other things like that.
And I want to talk to you about that as well. But if you are elected to the school board, how do you intend to commit to the supermajority that the Moms for Liberty suggests if you win?
I'm not being elected to be a supermajority person. I'm elected to represent the best interests of District 6 and Charleston County School District. Collectively, the citizenry of that entire group. And there are going to be times when an elected official has to side in their vote with one side, majority or minority in vote. I have no problem being a dissenting vote against something that I feel that is not necessarily going to benefit in policy or procedure the citizens of District 6, the teachers and the children of Charleston County School District, or Charleston County School District at large. I have no problem with that. And at the end of the day, if my vote reflects what my constituency believes to be the correct vote, and if I can work to galvanize support for my constituency's ideas and beliefs, then within 8 other people on that board, there's 8 other independent, critical thinking minds. And that's what I think we have to understand. I also think locally, we also have the unfortunate influence of other districts and other district boards that have been newly elected, such as in Berkeley County, okay, where it is without a doubt a preconceived agenda that they went into their very first meeting. They fired the superintendent. They did all these things that just came out of the blue, right? I have former colleagues who sit on that very board, one of whom was the former board chair, okay? I've known that gentleman to be a gentleman of integrity for over 30 years, both as an educator, as a principal, even as a basketball referee, okay? And even when other coaches might have disliked having him as an official, I always loved having Dave Barrow as an official in my games because he was proactive, he was diligent, he was dedicated, and he was objective. Those are all adjectives that describe how I will work on the board going forward. And whether they be to work with and champion the ideas of perhaps a non-Moms for Liberty candidate endorsee that was endorsed and vetted and voted in, or a Moms for Liberty candidate that was voted and vetted in. It doesn't matter to me. We're there to work together. We're not there to work in a majority-minority situation. This isn't Washington, D.C., Quintin, okay, where we have a House majority, and whether the House majority be Republican or Democrat, they can simply say we have the votes, okay? We don't work that way in a nonpartisan board. We have to work together for the common good and outcome, hear all perspectives, and then put together what's best for the district, given a $900 million budget and 50,000 students.
But Mr. Lee, I hate to harken on this, and I really want to talk about some other issues. Oh, God. But I have to ask these type of questions, and please thank you for being so respectful.
They're great questions.
I appreciate it. But then you've gotten all the support from Moms for Liberty in this particular Project PAC. But how in the world can you garner support with these endorsements?
How can I garner support?
Right.
Endorsements resonate with some people. Other people, it bothers.
Does it bother your constituents?
It doesn't bother a percentage of my constituents. That's not the feedback we're getting from the boots on the ground, from the door knocks, from the phone calls. That's not the feedback we're getting. Do we see some isolated instances of social media? Yes, it does bother some folks who have a voice on social media. Does it bother folks who are supporting my opponent, like, for example, Joy Brown, former constituent board member, former candidate in District 7? Yes, it bothers Joy Brown. I like Joy Brown. I have nothing but respect for Joy Brown. But if it bothers her enough to make it an issue in a race for a West Ashley seat for which she's not able to vote for, nor is she able to put herself in the candidate pool for, I respect any of those people's willingness to say transparently, I've got a problem with this group, I've got a problem with that group. Look, Quintin, okay? We've as human beings, we've had these kind of conversations regardless of politics, religion, ethnicity, demographic, forever as human beings. And at the end of the day, what we have to understand is that the job at hand is to represent and to govern. And if endorsements from one particular person or one particular group may perhaps not resonate with certain people, I apologize that it may not resonate with them. What I say to them is, it doesn't change the independent, strong-willed individual that they have the opportunity to elect.
How do you understand your district? Because you came in second place, Mr. Lee.
Hmm?
They obviously rejected you and your endorsements. How do you understand better your district now?
I'm the only candidate in this race, first of all, that is running right now that had the support of over 3,000 of the voters who cast votes. Okay? First of all, with that being said, that should speak to the fact that I am supported and I do understand a percentage of my district. Secondly, I put myself in a position as a leader in West Ashley for over 5 years where I had to work with folks of all demographics, of all walks of life throughout the West Ashley community. I worked for 11 years in North Charleston, as you know, okay, teaching and coaching at Stall High School and Garrett Academy, and knowing that district as well, that side of my district as well. I've spoken to local leadership. I've spoken to voters at the doors, okay? And I know by that direct interaction that I can make a difference, and I have a clear understanding of my district. Point to the other side of the aisle, the other choice, okay? Young man that's a fine young man who was elected to the constituent board in November here in District 10, has been serving on the board for a few years, okay? Not born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina. Not a person who has been in public education leadership or public education classroom. Maybe has different experiences and perspectives than I have. Fantastic opportunity to present a difference there, okay? But at the end of the day, it's not to say that through endorsement I don't understand or am not in some way connected or maybe disconnected from District 6, Quintin. I think that's the furthest thing from the truth that I could submit to you.
Then why didn't you become number one in the race? Why didn't you win the race last time? Since you know all of these people in these areas.
Right. We ran against an incumbent. Number two, okay, we ran in a 3-person race, as I told you earlier, okay? And all of the trend data, all the breakdown data in political analysis will tell you that when you split the votes 3 ways, you have every opportunity to end up perhaps second, with the opportunity, if there were 2 of us, to have ended up first. We ran against a female candidate in a category of candidate choices where she was the only female candidate. That makes a difference. That makes a big difference there. So that race is that race. This race is a different type of race because we're not running in a situation that is exactly cookie cutter like the 3-person race that we had demographically or otherwise in November.
Where did you hurt as far as demographics in the last race?
As far as demographics, I would have to say that the voters that voted in what we would call the part of District 6 closer to Peninsular Charleston.
Right.
Okay. We tended to see second place finishes in those precincts. Okay. But keep in mind, I won several precincts in that race. Okay. I saw very much sport success in the Bees Ferry Road corridor. Okay. In the part of West Ashley where perhaps there were more children school age households where folks had name recognition because of my time of service as an educator. We ran strong in several precincts in North Charleston, but we did not finish first in enough precincts to finish the job. And at the same time too, the gentleman that finished third brought similar demographics to the table, and in some ways, voters became split, I think, and it diluted the opportunity to vote in terms of the numbers. In this race, it's head-to-head. It's 1 against 1. It's 2 men against 2 men. It's a very different race, Quintin.
And as a disclaimer, I did reach out to Daron Lee Calhoun II, who is your opponent.
Yeah.
I reached out to him twice by email. I have not heard back yet, so I'm hoping to get him on Quintin's close-ups before the actual special election takes place.
I hope you do.
And I hope to get Joy Brown on so that she can get her time to respond to what you're just saying.
Yeah.
But let me move on. You talked to me earlier in the last interview on Zoom about the existence of accreditation, and you basically said, hey, a lot of those new school board members didn't know anything about it. Let me ask you, what are the Charleston County School District challenges facing learning assessment for accreditation?
The accreditation process and the challenges are two different things. So let's talk accreditation to begin with. Accreditation comes from SACS. It comes from Southeastern Schools. Okay, was in place, has always been in place. All right. The challenges for reaccreditation and continued accreditation for the district are minuscule. The reason being is because the district has received, upon review at district level, the last 2 times, all cleared basically. What challenges us in the future is the number and percentage of alternative certification or uncertified teachers that we may hire, the percentage of classrooms that may go more than 9 weeks with an uncertified teacher or a long-term sub in place. Those are challenges for accreditation purposes that we have to continue to keep an eye on, be diligent to supporting and resourcing so that we do not put ourselves in position to jeopardize, those specific areas. Academically, our accreditation has always been glowing and all clear, but accreditation does not equate to academic excellence. Keep that in mind, because most districts are accredited. Not every district performs at a high level.
Now, how many certified teachers do we have right now in District 6?
When you talk about District 6, as we spoke about in the fall, okay, District 6 in total touches, through attendance feeder patterns, about 38 different schools in Charleston County, elementary, middle, and high. So with 38 schools, that's nearly 40% of the population. So given about a 5,500 to 6,000 employee teaching force in Charleston County, all right, you can figure that touches probably between 2,500 and 3,000 classrooms.
Now, because of the growth in your district, how much has that changed the attendance feeder?
It's not changed the attendance feeder a whole lot because of the fact that we haven't had any new schools come online. The constituent boards have worked at times to adjust attendance lines for elementary schools. In the West Ashley community, they've worked a little bit over in North Charleston. Back in late fall, or 2022, they were working to change and adjust attendance lines for Stall High School and North Charleston High School, and then the big board overturned those because they didn't want to make those changes at that particular time. So there's not been a lot of line change for District 6, which has zoned people into or out of schools that they were already zoned in.
Now, where do you see the attendance lines changing next in your district?
I think the attendance lines for the near future probably will not make any changes, but the constituent board would have those answers. I think as a county where we are challenged is, for proactive growth considerations, is in the southern end of Charleston County, adjoining my district in the Ravenel-Hollywood constituent District 23 area, which is in District 8. But the fact of the matter is if you drive 15 minutes south of East Ferry Road, you see that the East Evanston project is well underway. They are already breaking ground, and they're going to build several hundred houses down there, which is going to mean that we are going to have to prioritize conversations about infrastructure, educational infrastructure in the southern end of the county in the very near future. Because we have constituent districts, we don't oftentimes have a practice in Charleston County of adjusting lines out of West Ashley or extending West Ashley High School's attendance zone line into the constituency of District 23. And I'm not saying that's the right or wrong thing to do, but that takes a lot of collaboration, a lot of coordination, a lot of understanding of both the history and the matter at hand. That's the experience that I bring to that conversation, that table, that uniquely gives me an opportunity to help us be proactive in that matter and physically responsible for our citizens.
What do you understand about that history now? What's the biggest difference?
I need you to repeat that, or not repeat, but
I'm just going off what you just said.
Right. So what I understand. Okay. So what I understand about it is now is, as I said. Okay. For example, all right. Let's take a present day situation. The building and ops folks of Charleston County School District, okay, built Lucy Beckham in an explosive growth area of Mount Pleasant, under capacity. Maybe it was, or maybe it wasn't built to the extent that the footprint and the physical facility could be built there or not. It's not my purpose to speak to that at this point. But we are now faced with trailers on campuses of a brand new school, and less than 5 miles away from Lucy Beckham's campus, geographically, sits Burke High School with about a third of the occupancy limit of the building currently occupied. Now, we have traffic challenges, we have infrastructure challenges, but at the same time, we have to be physically responsible in making attendance zone considerations to utilize and best utilize our existing facilities rather than continuing to build schools that remain to be a third empty or half empty. So in that example, how could we impact attendance lines to perhaps improve the attendance at Burke High School by looking at the adjoining constituencies for the purpose of bringing in perhaps more families or more neighborhoods into the Burke zone and subsequently out of the Beckham zone or into the Burke zone and out of the West Ashley High School zone or the James Island zone or whatever. It's a checkerboard. And so if you move a line A, further out, not only are you moving that line A further out for the purpose of maybe using the physical space without building another physical space, but you're also having to keep in mind that you have constituency lines that you may have to have working relationships with those constituent boards to accomplish that feat. Is that the best thing to do or not the best thing to do at this point? I don't know, because I haven't studied the finances of those projects and future projects. But I do know this. The time for us to have these conversations is now in 2022 and 2023 year versus once they get 500 or 600 houses built in the southern end of the county, and then we're starting to have this conversation. We've had the same issue that we're now addressing on Johns Island. We're building the consolidated elementary school. Okay, in my opinion, we're building it too small. We're building it with a phase 1 primary building of 700 and the opportunity for enough space to build an option down the road for another 200 kids, is my understanding. Okay, the price point and cost of that addition down the road will be more for the taxpayers at that point than it will be to go ahead and build the space now, given the explosive growth on Johns Island. So I would submit and advocate for that. Within my own district, right, West Ashley's C.E. Williams project was also built too small at day 1 of occupancy. If it hadn't been for the pandemic, we would have had, that challenge in front of us as soon as it was occupied. But because of the pandemic, we were on remote learning. Okay? We have a scenario and a situation there where now we're building additional 8 classrooms. Now we're considering, the refurbishment or rebuild over on the former Middleton campus.
Sure.
And there are some folks in West Ashley, even within the constituent board, that say and advocate for that building of another physical plant to give West Ashley residents a second middle school option. So let me say to you this: Orange Grove Charter Middle is a second middle school option, which we have building locked into an antiquated, mothballed elementary school campus building. So as we have these conversations, we've got to be cognizant of all that we have, but also fiscally responsible. And we can't build short term to turn around and then say 2 or 3 years down the road, we should have built it bigger. And by the way, the cost of construction has now gone up. So now we've got to spend more of the taxpayers' dollars.
And I want to talk to you about that in the next interview that I do with you. But off the record, I heard that a sitting politician in the city of Charleston wants to make Burke High School a state charter school. When you hear that, what do you say?
I would say to the Burke community that I am fully in support of Burke, both its history and both its continued prosperous accomplishment as an educational institution. And I will support what the community of Burke, the support of the leadership of Burke, and of the city of Charleston can collaboratively come together on an agreement to. I'm not interested in handing any of our schools over to public-private partnerships. But that said, if there is a model or an opportunity for us to grow the enrollment of Burke by increasing its attendance lines, for example, if it were in a scenario where some type of charter, if the Burke community decided to write a charter and it was grassroots oriented, and it then, because of charter law, gave it access to statewide attendance lines, and perhaps brought to the table collaboration with post-secondary educational institutions, whether they be the College of Charleston, the Citadel, South Carolina State, Claflin, Benedict, what have you. Bring me those ideas, bring that to the table, and I will give it great consideration.
And unfortunately, I want to pin down and ask you some more follow-up questions on all of that, but the battery's saying I gotta go.
I know.
Lee Runyon, thank you so much for your time again. Welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks, Quintin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anytime.